Nathan Cross shoved past the first-class curtain and dropped to his knees beside the dying woman. His hands cracked and calloused from scrubbing corporate toilets at midnight, found her throat checked, her airway, tilted her head back with the precision of 8 years in the ICU. 47 passengers watched. One filmed for TikTok. No one else moved. In seat 38C, his 8-year-old daughter clutched her own-eyed teddy bear. Their only food, a half-eaten granola bar. His mother was dying in a Phoenix hospital 2,000 miles away. He had 4 hours to say goodbye. He saved the billionaire's life in 2 minutes and 47 seconds. Then he vanished without a word. What she discovered about him would shatter everything she believed about worth, success, and the invisible people she'd walked past her entire privileged life. If you enjoy stories about unlikely heroes, hit subscribe and drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. The flight attendant's scream cut through the cabin like a knife. Nathan Cross was already out of his seat before his brain registered what was happening. 7 years of working night shifts, loading boxes, scrubbing floors. None of it had erased the reflexes that 8 years in the ICU had burned into his nervous system. He pushed through the first-class curtain. A woman lay sprawled across 2 seats, her face swelling, her lips turning blue, her hands clawing at her throat. "She's not breathing," someone shouted. "Call 911. We're at 30,000 feet, you idiot. What are they going to do?" Nathan dropped to his knees beside her. His hands found her corroded pulse weak, Freddie fading. Her airway was constricting. Classic anaphylaxis, severe and progressing fast. "Ma'am, I'm a nurse. Stay with me." Her eyes found his terror. Pure primal terror. This woman who wore a watch worth more than Nathan earned in a year, who had probably never been helpless a day in her life. She was dying and she knew it. "She's in anaphylactic shock." Nathan called out, "I need the emergency medical kit now. Does anyone have an EpiPen?" The flight attendant scrambled toward the back. Passengers craned their necks, phones rising like a field of electronic flowers. A man in 3C had his iPhone positioned perfectly, already composing the caption for his social media post. "Daddy." The small voice cut through the chaos. Nathan turned. Lily stood at the edge of first class, clutching Mr. Patches, the own-eyed teddy bear her mother had bought from a hospital gift shop the day before she died. "Daddy, is the lady going to die?" "No, baby." Nathan said it like a promise, like he had any power over death. "She's going to be just fine. Go sit down." Lily didn't move, her eyes. Megan's eyes stayed fixed on him with that solemn intensity that only 8-year-olds possessed. The flight attendant returned with the medical kit. Nathan grabbed the EpiPen, checked the expiration date, positioned it against the woman's lateral thigh. 1, 2, 3, he pressed, held for 10 seconds, counted in his head the way he'd counted 1,000 times before in a different life when he'd worn scrubs instead of duct-taped shoes. "Breathe with me," he said, slow and steady, in and out. "You're doing great." Color returned to her face. The swelling began to subside. She gasped, coughed, breathed. The cabin erupted in applause. Nathan barely heard it. He was already checking her vitals, monitoring her breathing, calculating whether she'd need a second dose. "Sir." The flight attendant touched his shoulder. "You saved her life. Can we get your name? The airline will want to recognize." Nathan checked his watch. His stomach dropped. 3 hours and 42 minutes. That's how long he had to get to Phoenix to hold his mother's hand to say goodbye. "Monitor her closely," he said, already standing. "Second dose in 15 to 20 minutes. If symptoms return, have paramedics waiting at the gate." "Sir, your name." But Nathan was already moving back through the curtain. Back to row 38. Back to Lily, who was waiting with Mr. Patches pressed against her chest. "Is she okay, Daddy?" "She's okay, sweetheart. You saved her like a superhero." Nathan pulled Lily into his arms. She smelled like the cheap shampoo from the motel they'd stayed in last night. $39.99. The only place they could afford narrow hair. Not a superhero rosy girl, just someone who knew what to do. Behind them in first class, Victoria Sterling was trying to sit up. She was searching the cabin, looking for the man with the rough hands and the kind eyes who had pulled her back from the edge of death. But he was gone, dissolved into the crowd of economy passengers like he had never existed at all. Victoria Sterling had not become a billionaire by accepting mysteries. She had built Ashford Medical Technologies from a maxed-out credit card and a refusal to fail. 15 years of 18-hour days, 15 years of being the first one in and the last one out, 15 years of sacrificing everything, relationships, health, happiness on the altar of success. She was 19 days away from the largest medical technology IPO in NASDAQ history, and she had almost died eating shrimp at 30,000 featuring. The paramedics met her at the gate in Phoenix. She spent 4 hours at Banner University Medical Center being monitored, being tested, being told how lucky she was. Another few minutes without intervention, the doctor said, and we'd be having a very different conversation. Victoria didn't feel lucky. She felt haunted. Who saves a stranger's life and asks for absolutely nothing in return? She replayed the moment over and over. His hands on her face, his voice cutting through the fog. Stay with me. You're going to be okay. He had said it like he meant it, like her survival mattered to him personally, like she was a human being instead of a net worth. When had anyone last looked at her that way? Ms. Sterling, her assistant, appeared in the doorway. The board is concerned. They've been trying to reach you. Mr. Roland has called 6 times. Roland, her younger brother, 15 years he'd been waiting for her to stumble, 15 years of watching, calculating, positioning himself for the moment she showed weakness. Tell him I'm fine. Tell everyone I'm fine and get me Marcus Webb, the private investigator. I want to find the man who saved my life. Nathan made it to Phoenix General with 8 minutes to spare. Dorothy Cross lay in a bed that seemed too big for her shrunken frame. The cancer had taken everything, her weight, her color, her independence. But her eyes were still sharp. Still knowing, still the same eyes that had watched him take his first steps, graduate from nursing school, marry the love of his life. You made it. Her voice was barely a whisper. I made it, Mum. Lily hung back in the doorway. She had never seen death up close. Nathan wasn't sure she should see it now. Come here, little one. Dorothy's hand lifted weakly from the blanket. Let me look at you. Lily approached slowly, clutching Mr. Patches. She climbed onto the bed beside her grandmother with a carefulness that broke Nathan's heart. Hi, Grandma Dorothy. You've gotten so big, so beautiful. Dorothy's eyes filled with tears. Just like your mama. Nathan felt his throat close. Megan, 7 years gone, and the mention of her name still hit him like a physical blow. Mum, don't tire yourself. I'll tire myself if I want to. A flash of the old Dorothy, stubborn, fierce, impossible. I'm dying, Nathan. I get to say whatever I want. Grandma, are you going to heaven? Lily's voice was small. I hope so, sweetheart. Your mum is there. I'm going to tell her all about you. How smart you are, how brave, how much your daddy loves you. Lily's face crumpled. I don't want you to go. I know, baby. I don't want to go either, but some things we don't get to choose. Dorothy's eyes found Nathan. We only choose how we live with them. Nathan took his mother's hand. Her skin was paper thin. He could feel the bones beneath. Send me out, Nathan. Give your grandma a minute with your daddy. Lily looked at Nathan. He nodded. She kissed Dorothy's cheek gently like she was afraid of breaking her and slipped out of the room. For a long moment, mother and son sat in silence. You look terrible, Dorothy finally said. Nathan almost laughed. Thanks, Mum. When did you last sleep? Eat something that wasn't from a vending machine. I'm fine. You're not fine. You haven't been fine in 7 years. Dorothy's grip tightened on his hand. I'm about to say something and you're going to listen because I'm dying and that means I get the last word. Mum, shut up. I'm talking. Nathan, shut up. Megan loved you more than anything in this world, more than her own life. When she died, a part of you died with her. I understood that. I gave you space. I watched you destroy your career, pile up debt, work yourself into the ground, and I said nothing because I thought you needed time. She paused, gathering strength. But 7 years, Nathan, 7 years of hiding, 7 years of pretending to live when you're really just surviving. That's not grieving anymore. That's giving up. I haven't given up. I'm still here. I'm still taking care of Lily. You're keeping her alive. There's a difference. Dorothy's eyes were fierce. Megan wouldn't want this. She wouldn't want you working 3 jobs and barely scraping by. She wouldn't want Lily growing up thinking this is what life looks like. Nathan felt tears burning in his eyes. He hadn't cried in 7 years. Not since the funeral. What am I supposed to do? Mum, I have $187 in my bank account. I'm getting evicted in 6 days. I can't even afford to bury you. I don't care about being buried. Burn me, scatter me, throw me in a dumpster. I'm dead. I won't know the difference. Dorothy's voice cracked. But promise me something. Promise me you won't be afraid to live again. I'm not afraid. You're terrified. You've been hiding for 7 years. Megan wouldn't want that. Lily needs you whole, not just surviving, living. I don't know how anymore. Then learn. Dorothy reached up and touched his face. Her hand was cold. Find something. Find someone. Let yourself be seen. You've been invisible for too long, Nathan. It's time to come back to the world. Mum, I promise. The words caught in his throat. His mother was dying. These might be the last words she ever spoke to him. How could he promise something he didn't know how to deliver? But he looked into her eyes, the same eyes that had watched him take his first steps, that had believed in him when no one else did, and he knew he couldn't deny her. I promise, Mum. Dorothy smiled. Her hand fell back to the blanket. Good. Now tell Lily to come back in. I want to hold my granddaughter one more time. 2 hours later, Dorothy Cross closed her eyes for the last time. Nathan held her hand as she slipped away. Lily sat on the other side of the bed, Mr. Patches clutched to her chest, watching her grandmother's chest rise and fall, and then stop. Is she in heaven now, Daddy? Yeah, sweetheart, she's in heaven now, with Mama. With Mama. Lily was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, Grandma told me something before when you went to get coffee. What did she tell you? She said you were the best son a mother could ever have. She said you saved people's lives for a long time and then something sad happened and you stopped. She said. Lily's voice wavered. She said, I should help you remember how to be happy again. Nathan pulled his daughter into his arms and wept. 7 years of suppressed grief. 7 years of holding it together. 7 years of being strong for Lily, for his mother, for everyone except himself. He cried until he had nothing left. And somewhere in that empty hospital room holding his daughter while his mother's body grew cold beside them, Nathan Cross made a decision. He didn't know what living looked like anymore. He didn't know how to stop being invisible. He didn't know how to honor a promise he'd made to a dying woman. But he was going to try for his mother, for Megan, for Lily, for himself. 2,000 miles East Victoria. Sterling sat in her office at the top of Willis Tower. The city sprawled beneath her like a kingdom she had conquered. Her Bloomberg terminal cycled through pre-market futures. Her phone buzzed with messages from board members concerned about her health. She ignored all of it. Marcus Webb's preliminary report sat open on her desk. 47 passengers on that flight, 12 men traveling with children, but only one who had disappeared immediately after landing without speaking to anyone. Nathan James Cross, age 36, former registered nurse, current employment night custodian. Willis Tower, warehouse associate, Amazon, weekend handyman, whatever he could find. Victoria stared at the name. The man who had saved her life cleaned the building she worked in. He had probably emptied her trash, vacuumed her floor, been invisible to her 100 times. Her phone buzzed again. Roland. She let it go to voicemail. Something was shifting inside her. Something she didn't have words for yet. All she knew was that she had almost died. And the only person who had moved to help her was someone the system had completely failed, someone invisible, someone who had asked for nothing. Victoria Sterling had spent 42 years believing that success was the only thing that mattered. That worth was measured in dollars. That power was the ultimate goal. But in that moment on the plane, when she couldn't breathe, when she was dying, when all her money and all her power meant absolutely nothing, a man in duct-taped shoes had looked her in the eyes and said, "You're going to be okay." And she had believed him. For the first time in her life, Victoria Sterling questioned everything she thought she knew. Marcus Webb called 3 days later. "Your mystery man is a ghost," he said. "It's like he's practiced being invisible." Victoria leaned forward in her chair. "What do you mean practiced?" "Some people learn not to be seen. Usually means they've spent a long time being overlooked or they have something to hide." "He saved my life. What could he possibly be hiding?" "That's what I'm trying to figure out." Webb's voice carried the weariness of someone who had seen too much. "I cross-referenced emergency room admissions within 500 meters of Phoenix on the day of your flight. Terminal cancer patient Dorothy Cross, 67 years old, died the same day next of kin listed as Nathan James Cross' son." Victoria felt something tighten in her chest. He was flying to see his dying mother. Got there with 8 minutes to spare. The funeral was 6 days ago. Small service, almost no one there. Webb paused. "I have the complete dossier. You want to hear it. Everything." Nathan James Cross, 36 years old, former registered nurse, licensed, still active, but unemployed in healthcare since 2016. Bachelor of Science in Nursing from Rush University. Exemplary performance reviews. All 7 years. He worked at Northwestern Memorial ICU. Why did he leave? His wife, Karen Cross, née Bellamy, died December 2016. Postpartum hemorrhage, complications during childbirth. Victoria closed her eyes. She could still feel his hands on her face, the certainty in his voice. "She's going to be okay." The medical bills hit $892,000. Insurance covered about 60%. He declared bankruptcy 2 years later. Lost his house. His credit rating is destroyed. Current employment is night custodian at Willis Tower. Willis Tower. Victoria interrupted. "This building." "Yes, ma'am. $1,325 an hour. No benefits." He also works at an Amazon warehouse. $16.50 salons an hour. Classified as seasonal for 14 months. Weekend handyman cash basis whatever he can find. His daughter qualifies for free lunch at school. His bank account has $187 in it. Victoria stared out her window at the city below. Somewhere down there, a man who had saved her $3 billion life was cleaning toilets for $13 an hour. "There's more," Webb said. "Eviction notice was filed last week. He has 5 days before the sheriff shows up. Send me the address, Miss Sterling. I should warn you. Send me the address. Nathan stood in Dorothy's empty trailer, surrounded by the remnants of his mother's life. She had moved here after Karen died, selling her car and everything she owned to help him survive the bankruptcy. A 67-year-old woman who had worked double shifts at Denny's for 19 years, giving up her retirement so her son could keep his head above water. And this was what she had left behind. A single wide trailer in a Phoenix park. A box of photographs. A jewelry box with a fake pearl necklace worth maybe $20. Daddy. Lily stood in the doorway. Mister. Patches tucked under her arm. Yeah, sweetheart. What are we going to do with Grandma's stuff? Nathan looked around at the faded furniture, the worn carpet, the water stains on the ceiling. 7 years ago, his mother had lived in a comfortable house with a garden. She had given it all up for him. I don't know yet, Rosie girl. Can I keep her reading glasses? She always looked so smart when she wore them. Nathan felt his throat close. Of course you can. His phone buzzed. The cemetery. He'd been avoiding their calls for 3 days. Mr. Cross. This is Jennifer from Desert Memorial. I'm calling about your mother's arrangements. We need to discuss payment options. I understand. I just need a little more time. Sir, I'm afraid we've already extended the timeline as far as we can. If we don't receive a deposit by Friday, we'll have to turn the remains over to the county. Nathan leaned against the trailer wall. How much is the deposit? $1,500. $1,500. He had 187. The eviction was in 5 days. He hadn't eaten anything but Lily's leftover school lunch in 3 days. I'll figure it out, he said. Please, just give me until Friday. He hung up and slid down the wall until he was sitting on the floor. Lily watched him with those 2 old eyes. Are we in trouble, Daddy? No, sweetheart. Everything's going to be fine. But even as he said it, Nathan wondered how many more lies he could tell before they stopped meaning anything at all. Victoria found him in the cemetery parking lot. He was sitting in an ancient Honda Civic, staring at nothing. 73 hours without sleep had hollowed him out. His hands rested on the steering wheel like he'd forgotten how to drive. She got out of her Mercedes and walked toward him. Her Louis Vuitton heels clicked on the asphalt. Hermes' scarf fluttered in the Arizona wind. Everything about her screamed money. Everything about him screamed survival. He looked up when she approached. For a moment, he didn't recognize her. Then something flickered in his eyes. You shouldn't be here, he said. I've been looking for you. Why? Victoria stopped beside his car. Up close, she could see the exhaustion carved into his face, the stubble that said he hadn't shaved in days, the eyes that had seen too much and expected nothing good. You saved my life. Anyone would have done the same. But they didn't. She kept her voice steady. 47 people watched me die. 1 man filmed it for TikTok. You were the only one who moved. Nathan was quiet. For a long moment, the Arizona wind carried red dust across the parking lot. I had somewhere to be, he finally said. My mother was dying. I know. I found the funeral notice. Victoria hesitated. I should have come. I wanted to. Don't. His voice hardened. Don't do that. Do what? The sympathy thing. The charity thing. The rich person trying to make themselves feel better thing. He pushed open the car door and stood. I don't want thanks. I don't want a reward. I don't want anything. I just want to get through today, tomorrow. That's it. I'm not offering charity. Then what are you offering? Victoria saw the eviction notice sticking out of his jacket pocket. She'd read the dossier. She knew everything. The bankruptcy, the debt, the 3 jobs that still weren't enough. Let me help you. Nathan laughed. It was the saddest sound Victoria had ever heard. Help me. You want to help me? He stepped closer. Do you know what help looks like from where I'm standing? Help looks like guilt money. Help looks like some billionaire trying to buy her conscience clean. Help looks like everything I've been trying to escape for 7 years. That's not my wife died on a delivery table. Nathan cut her off. She bled out while some insurance algorithm spent 52 minutes deciding whether to authorize a procedure that should have happened immediately. I stood there and watched. I was a nurse. I knew exactly what was happening and I couldn't do a damn thing. His voice cracked. The system. You're part of the system that made you a billionaire. It killed my wife. It bankrupted my family. It took my career and my house and my mother's retirement. And now it's taking the only home my daughter has ever known. Victoria said nothing. There was nothing to say. So don't stand here in your $3,000 shoes and offer to help me. Nathan continued. Because from where I'm standing, you're part of the problem. You're right. Nathan stopped. Whatever he'd expected her to say, it wasn't that. You're right about everything. Victoria's voice was barely a whisper. I run a medical technology company. We build diagnostic systems, imaging tools, things that help hospitals work faster. But the system that uses those tools, it's broken. It's been broken my whole career, and I've done nothing because fixing it doesn't show up on quarterly earnings. She reached up and removed her sunglasses. Her eyes were red-rimmed with exhaustion and something that looked almost like shame. I almost died on that plane, and the only person who helped me was someone the system had completely failed. Someone invisible to everyone in first class. She paused. Someone who cleaned my building every night and I never once looked at him. Nathan stared at her. You knew I worked there. I found out yesterday. You've probably emptied my trash 100 times, vacuumed my floor, been in my office when I was working late. Victoria's voice broke. And I never saw you. Not once. That's how it works. People like you don't see people like me. I know, and I'm asking you to help me change that. Nathan shook his head. I can't help you with anything. I can't even help myself. My foundation runs a healthcare re-entry program, scholarships for nurses who left the field, housing assistance, childcare support, full tuition, job placement. Victoria took a breath. In exchange, 3 years working in underserved communities. Why are you telling me this? Because I want you to apply. Nathan laughed again. This time it was bitter. A scholarship. Are you serious? I have $187 in my bank account. My daughter qualifies for free lunch. I'm getting evicted in 5 days. I can't even afford to bury my mother. He shook his head. A scholarship isn't going to fix that. The program includes housing, a safe neighborhood, after-school care for your daughter, health insurance for both of you. Victoria met his eyes. Real health insurance, the kind that doesn't take 52 minutes to authorize life-saving procedures. Nathan still went. This isn't charity, Victoria continued. Every penny earned, every certification passed, every patient served. You prove yourself or you're out. Why me? Why would you do this for someone you don't even know? Victoria thought about the moment on the plane. His hands on her face, his voice cutting through the fog, the way he had looked at her. Not like a billionaire, not like a net worth, just like a person who needed help. Because you saved my life with skills you haven't used in 7 years, she said. And that means something. Because my mother worked herself into an early grave building, something she thought would matter. And I've spent my whole career wondering if it actually does. She paused. Because I need to believe that what I've built actually helps people. And right now, standing here with you, I'm not sure anymore. Nathan was quiet for a long time. His eyes drifted toward the cemetery where his mother was waiting to be buried. My mother's last words, he said finally. She made me promise not to be afraid. Afraid of what? Living. He turned back to Victoria. She said I'd been hiding for 7 years. She said Megan wouldn't want that. She said Lily needs me whole, not just surviving. Was she right? She was always right, even when I didn't want her to be. Nathan reached into his pocket and pulled out a small photograph. Worn edges, faded color, a woman in a hospital gown holding a newborn baby smiling at the camera with exhausted joy. This is Megan, he said, 30 minutes before she died. That's Lily in her arms. First and last time they were ever together. Victoria looked at the photograph. The woman's smile, the baby's tiny face, the absolute love captured in that single frozen moment. She's beautiful, Victoria whispered. She was everything. Nathan's voice cracked. When she died, I forgot how to live. I went through the motions. Took care of Lily. Worked whatever jobs I could find. But I wasn't really here. I was just existing. He put the photograph back in his pocket. My mother saw that. She spent 7 years watching me disappear. And with her last breath, she made me promise to come back. Can you keep that promise? Nathan looked at Victoria, this woman from a world he had never touched, standing in a cemetery parking lot in Arizona, offering him something that felt impossible. I don't know, he said honestly. I've been invisible for so long. I'm not sure I remember how to be seen. Victoria extended her hand. Then maybe it's time to find out. Nathan stared at her hand. Everything in him screamed to refuse. Pride, fear, 7 years of learning that hope was just another word for disappointment. But his mother's voice echoed in his head. Don't be afraid to live again. He took Victoria's hand. Okay, the word hung between them. A beginning, a risk, a promise to try. Okay, Victoria repeated. We start Monday. Wait, Nathan pulled back. I can't start Monday. I have to bury my mother first and I don't have the foundation will cover the funeral costs. I can't accept. It's not charity. Call it an advance against your first year of service. Victoria's voice was firm. You're going to work harder than you've ever worked in your life. You're going to earn every penny, but you don't have to do it while your mother waits in a morgue. Nathan felt something crack inside his chest. Something he'd been holding together with duct tape and denial for 7 years. Why? The word came out rough. Why would you do all this for someone you don't even know? Victoria thought about the question about the man who had saved her life and asked for nothing, about the empire she'd built that suddenly Felt hollow, about all the invisible people she'd walked past without seeing. Because you saw me, she said. On that plane when I was dying, everyone else saw a billionaire, a news story, a TikTok video. But you saw a person who needed help, and you helped. She met his eyes. Maybe I want to learn how to do that, too. Dorothy Cross was buried 3 days later. The service was small, just Nathan, Lily, and a few of Dorothy's friends from the trailer park. A priest said words that Nathan barely heard. Lily placed a flower on the casket, her small face solemn. Victoria stayed in the back out of sight. She'd paid for everything, the casket, the plot, the headstone, and asked only that Nathan never mention it. She was your mother, Victoria had said when he tried to thank her. She raised the man who saved my life. The least I can do is make sure she's buried with dignity. After the service, Nathan stood alone at the grave. Lily had gone with one of Dorothy's friends to get ice cream, a small mercy, a few minutes of childhood in the middle of grief. He touched the headstone, fresh-cut marble, his mother's name and dates, a simple inscription, beloved mother and grandmother. I'm going to keep my promise, Mum, he whispered. I don't know how yet, but I'm going to try. The wind carried his words away. That night, Nathan and Lily boarded a plane back to Chicago. First class this time, Victoria had insisted, and Nathan was too exhausted to argue. Lily pressed her face against the window, watching the lights of Phoenix disappear below them. Daddy. Yeah, sweetheart. Is that lady your friend now? The one from the plane? Nathan thought about the question. Friend wasn't the right word. Neither was boss or benefactor or the dozen other labels that didn't quite fit. I think so. He finally said something like that. She seems nice. Sad but nice. What makes you think she's sad? Lily turned from the window. Her eyes. Megan's eyes studied him with that unnerving intensity. She looks at you like you're a puzzle, she's trying to figure out, and she looks at herself like she doesn't know who she is anymore. Lily shrugged. That's what sad looks like sometimes. Not crying, just lost. Nathan stared at his 8-year-old daughter. When had she become so wise? Ms. Hernandez says everybody's a little lost. Lily continued. She says the trick is finding people who are lost in the same direction as you. Then you can be lost together until you find your way. That's pretty smart. Ms. Hernandez is pretty smart. Lily yawned and leaned against his shoulder. Daddy. Yeah, sweetheart. I think we're going to be okay. I don't know why. I just do. Nathan pulled her close. Mr. Patches was squished between them, his one remaining eye staring up at the cabin ceiling. I think so too, Rosie girl. For the first time in 7 years, Nathan Cross actually believed it. The foundation apartment was small but clean, 2 bedrooms, a kitchen that actually had a working stove, a bathroom without mold in the corners, a tree-lined street where neighbors actually waved. Nathan stood in the doorway while Lily explored, her footsteps echoing on the hardwood floors. Daddy, I have my own room. He followed her voice. She was standing in the middle of a small bedroom, empty except for a twin bed and a dresser spinning in slow circles with her arms outstretched. My own room, she repeated like she couldn't quite believe it. Not a corner, not a mattress on the floor. A real room with a door and everything. Nathan leaned against the door frame. For the last 3 years, Lily had slept on a fold-out couch in the living room of their apartment. Before that, a mattress on the floor in a studio they could barely afford. What do you think? He asked. I think. Lily stopped spinning. Her eyes were bright. I think Mum would like it here. And Grandma Dorothy, too. Nathan's throat tightened. Yeah, I think they would. Can I put my stuff on the walls, butterflies, and things? You can put whatever you want. Lily threw her arms around him. It was a fierce hug. The kind of hug that said everything words couldn't express. Thank you, Daddy. For what? For being brave. Grandma said you needed to be brave and you are. Nathan held his daughter and wondered when their roles had reversed. When had she become the one who gave him strength? That night, after Lily fell asleep in her new room the first time in her life, she'd had her own space. Nathan sat alone at the kitchen table. The apartment was quiet, peaceful, foreign. He pulled out Megan's photograph, the one he'd shown Victoria in the parking lot. I'm trying, he whispered. I don't know if I'm doing it right. I don't know if this is what you wanted, but I'm trying. The woman in the photograph smiled back, frozen forever in that moment of exhausted joy. 30 minutes before everything fell apart, Nathan touched her face. I loved you, he said. I still love you. I'm always going to love you. But Mum was right. I've been hiding and I can't hide anymore. He placed the photograph on the table. I'm not replacing you. I'm just making room for whatever comes next. The apartment was silent. No answer, no sign. But somehow Nathan felt lighter, like he'd been carrying a weight he didn't know he was holding. And now finally, he'd set it down. He went to bed for the first time in 7 years without dreaming of that delivery room. The first day back in Scrubs felt like putting on someone else's skin. Nathan stood in front of the mirror in the Foundation's training center, staring at his reflection. The fabric was stiff and new, nothing like the worn, familiar scrubs he'd lived in for 8 years. The ID badge clipped to his chest read Nathan Cross Nursing Re-Entry Program. His hands were shaking. "You're going to be fine." He turned. Dr. Margaret Chen stood in the doorway. The program director, a woman in her 60s with silver hair and no patience for excuses. "How do you know?" "Because I've seen your file. Top 3% in the entrance exam, 8 years of ICU experience before you left. Your skills didn't disappear, Mr. Cross. They just went into hibernation. It's been 7 years. Medicine changes. You don't." She crossed her arms. "The real question is whether you're going to let fear make the decision for you or whether you're going to trust yourself." Nathan looked back at the mirror. The man staring back at him was thinner than he remembered, more tired, older, but his hands were steady now. "I'll trust myself," he said. "Good. Your first clinical rotation starts in an hour. Don't be late." The first week nearly broke him. Everything had changed. The technology, the protocols, the medications, drugs he'd never heard of, equipment he'd never seen, abbreviations that made him feel like he was reading a foreign language. He stayed up until 2 a.m. every night, textbooks spread across the kitchen table, coffee cups accumulating like monuments to exhaustion. Sticky notes in 3 different colors covered every surface of the apartment. "Daddy, you need to sleep." Lily appeared in the doorway in her pajamas, Mr. Patches tucked under her arm. "I will, sweetheart. Just a few more pages." "That's what you said 2 hours ago." Nathan looked at his daughter, 8 years old and already mothering him. "Come here." He pushed back from the table and opened his arms. Lily climbed into his lap, careful not to disturb the papers. "Are you scared?" she asked. "A little. A lot of things have changed since I was a nurse before." "But you're smart. Ms. Hernandez says smart people can learn anything if they try hard enough." "Ms. Hernandez is right." Nathan kissed the top of her head. "But sometimes trying hard makes you really tired. Then sleep." Lily's voice was firm. "The books will still be there tomorrow. But if you get too tired, you'll forget everything anyway. That's what happened to Tommy Patterson when he stayed up all night studying for the spelling bee. He forgot how to spell banana. And that's an easy word." Nathan laughed despite himself. "You're pretty smart yourself. You know that." "I know." Lily yawned. "Now go to bed." "That's an order." "Yes, ma'am." Victoria appeared 3 weeks into the program. Nathan was in the Foundation cafeteria at 3:17 in the morning. Pharmacology textbook open head in his hands. He'd read the same page 9 times and still couldn't remember the difference between metoprolol and carvedil. "Can't sleep either." He looked up. She was wearing jeans and a Yale sweatshirt. No makeup, no armor. More human than he'd ever seen her. "Final exam in 6 hours," he said, "and I'm blanking on beta blockers." Victoria sat across from him. "Tell me about your wife." Nathan blinked at the non sequitur. "What? Your wife Karen? Tell me about her." He stared at her for a long moment trying to figure out the angle. But her eyes held no calculation, just genuine curiosity. "Why?" "Because you've been carrying her alone for 7 years, and sometimes talking helps." Nathan looked down at his textbook. The words blurred. "She taught kindergarten," he said finally. "Special education, kids with learning differences, behavioral challenges, kids nobody else had patience for." "That sounds hard." It was, but she loved it. Nathan's voice softened with the memory. "She'd come home covered in finger paint and glitter, smelling like Play-Doh, telling me about some 5-year-old who said his first full sentence or tied his shoes without help." Victoria was quiet listening. "She got pregnant with Lily. Easy pregnancy, no complications. Everyone said it would be fine." Nathan's jaw tightened. "Then the delivery. Everything went wrong at once. Placental abruption, massive hemorrhage. I was there. I was a nurse. I knew exactly what was happening." "But you weren't her doctor." "No, I was her husband. I had to stand there and watch while they waited for authorization, 52 minutes. Every second I watched her slip further away, knowing exactly what was happening, powerless to stop it." Victoria reached across the table and covered his hand with hers. "By the time they finally approved the surgery, it was too late." Nathan continued. "She looked at me, blood everywhere, monitors screaming, and she whispered, 'Take care of our rosy cow. Promise me.' Then her hand went limp in mine. That's why you left nursing. Every patient became her. Every code blue. I heard those monitors. I couldn't function." Nathan wiped his eyes. "So, I ran. Took jobs where I couldn't fail anyone. Where nobody depended on me to keep them alive. But you saved me." Nathan met her eyes. "You weren't a patient. You were just a person who needed help. My body moved before my brain could stop it. Maybe that's who you really are." Victoria's voice was soft. "Someone who moves when everyone else freezes." The words hung in the air between them. "Can I ask you something?" Nathan said. Anything. Why are you here at 3 o'clock in the morning in the cafeteria of a building you probably own? Victoria was quiet for a long moment. My mother died when I was 24, she said finally. Heart attack alone in her office at 2 a.m. She'd been working 18-hour days for as long as I could remember, building her company, proving herself, never stopping. I'm sorry. Don't be. She made her choices. Victoria's voice was flat. But after she died, I swore I'd be different. I'd work hard, but I'd have a life. I'd have relationships. I'd have something beyond the quarterly earnings. What happened? Victoria laughed bitterly. I became exactly like her. 18-hour days, no relationships, no life outside the company. I told myself it was temporary, just until the IPO, just until the next milestone, just until I proved I deserved to be here. She looked at Nathan with eyes that held decades of loneliness. I'm 42 years old. I have $3 billion and no one who would notice if I died. When I was choking on that plane, do you know what I was thinking? What? That I was going to die surrounded by strangers. That no one was going to miss me. Not really. That all those years of sacrifice meant absolutely nothing. Nathan squeezed her hand. Someone would have missed you. Who? My assistant. My board members. Victoria shook her head. The only person who actually saved me was someone I'd never even seen. Someone I'd walked past 100 times without noticing. Victoria, do you know what that feels like? To realize you've spent your whole life looking past the people who actually matter. To realize you've become someone who sees net worth instead of human beings. Nathan was quiet for a moment. Then he said, my mother used to say that it's never too late to change. That every day is a chance to be someone different. Is that what you're doing? Being someone different. I'm trying. He looked down at their joined hands. I don't know if I'm succeeding, but I'm trying. Victoria studied his face with an intensity that made his heart pound. Teach me, she said. Teach you what? How to see people, how to be present, how to. She struggled for the words. How to be human again. Nathan smiled despite himself. I'm not sure I'm qualified. I've been hiding for 7 years, remember? Then we can figure it out together. The words felt like a promise, like the beginning of something neither of them could name. Together, Nathan repeated. Yeah, I'd like that. The exam the next morning was brutal. 3 hours of questions covering everything from cardiac pharmacology to emergency protocols to ethical decision-making. Nathan's hand cramped from writing. His brain felt like it had been put through a blender. But when he walked out of the testing center, he felt something he hadn't felt in 7 years. Confidence. The results came 3 days later, 97th percentile, third highest score in the history of the program. Victoria called to congratulate him. I told you, she said. Your skills didn't disappear. They just went into hibernation. That's what drive. Chen said. She's a smart woman. Victoria paused. Nathan, I want to ask you something. Okay, next week is the Foundation Gala. 500 guests, major donors, board members, press. I'd like you to come. Nathan felt his stomach drop. I don't think that's a good idea. Why not? Because I'm a scholarship recipient, a former janitor. I don't belong at a gala with billionaires and politicians. You belong anywhere you choose to be. Victoria's voice was firm. Besides, I need you there. Why? Because everyone at that gala is going to ask me about the IPO, about quarterly earnings, about stock projections, and after 3 hours of that, I'm going to need someone to remind me why any of it matters. Nathan was quiet for a long moment. I don't own a suit. I'll send someone over tomorrow. My treat. Victoria, I can't let you consider it an investment in the Foundation's success. He could hear the smile in her voice. The man who saved my life should at least look presentable while he does it. The gala was everything Nathan had feared. 500 people who smelled like money and spoke in a language of privilege he'd never learned. Crystal chandeliers, champagne that cost more per glass than he'd made in an hour at the warehouse. Women in gowns worth more than his annual salary at all 3 jobs combined. The suit Victoria had sent fit perfectly tailored, elegant, expensive. Nathan felt like an imposter, wearing someone else's identity. But Lily thought he looked handsome. Like a prince, she'd said, watching him get ready. Or a spy. Daddy, are you a spy now? Something like that, he'd replied. Now he stood near the entrance trying to be invisible, a skill he'd perfected over 7 years of cleaning the offices of people who never looked at him. You look terrified. Victoria appeared beside him wearing a navy Valentino gown that made her look like a different species entirely. I am terrified. Good. That means you care. She took his arm. Come on. There are people I want you to meet. The next 2 hours were a blur of handshakes and small talk. Victoria introduced him as a participant in our healthcare re-entry program. Technically true, deliberately vague. People nodded politely and moved on. No one asked questions. No one was interested in a scholarship recipient when there were billionaires to impress. Nathan was beginning to relax when he felt eyes on him. A man across the room was watching, mid-40s, expensive suit, the kind of calculated smile that made Nathan's skin crawl. He looked like Victoria. Same bone structure, same dark hair, but without the warmth she'd slowly started showing. "Who's that?" Nathan asked. Victoria followed his gaze. Her face hardened. "My brother, Roland. I didn't know you had a brother. There's a lot you don't know about me." Victoria's voice was flat. "Roland has wanted my chair since the day I founded this company. 15 years he's been waiting for me to stumble. He looks like he's studying me. He is. He studies everyone, looks for weaknesses." Victoria's grip on his arm tightened. "Don't let him get in your head." But Roland was already approaching. "Sister." He kissed Victoria's cheek with theatrical affection. "You look radiant. The near-death experience must have agreed with you." "Roland, always a pleasure." Roland turned his attention to Nathan. His eyes swept over the suit. The posture, the hands that still showed calluses despite weeks away from manual labor. "And who might this be?" "Nathan Cross. He's participating in our foundation program." "Ah, yes, the program." Roland's smile widened. "Remind me, what does that cost us annually?" 12, Ion 411.4. It's in the quarterly reports. "Of course." Roland extended his hand to Nathan. "Roland Ashford, I'm on the board. Always interested in meeting our scholarship recipients." Nathan shook his hand. The grip was too firm, too aggressive, a power play disguised as courtesy. "Nice to meet you, Cross." Roland tilted his head. "That name sounds familiar. Have we met before?" "I don't think so." "Strange. I never forget a face." Roland's eyes narrowed slightly. "What did you do before the program, Mr. Cross?" "I was a nurse." "I see you as. Why did you leave?" "Personal reasons." "How mysterious." Roland glanced at Victoria. "My sister does have a weakness for mystery. She's always collecting strays." "Roland." Victoria's voice was ice. "Just making conversation, sis. No need to be defensive." He smiled at Nathan again. The kind of smile that showed teeth, but no warmth. "Well, best of luck with the program, Mr. Cross. I'm sure you'll make an excellent whatever it is you're training to be." He walked away before Nathan could respond. "I'm sorry about that," Victoria said quietly. "He's been worse since the plane incident. Probably hoping it would create an opening." "An opening for what?" "The CEO chair. He's been positioning for years." "My near-death experience must have felt like Christmas morning." Victoria's jaw tightened. "He doesn't believe I have what it takes. Never has. I've spent 15 years proving him wrong, and he still thinks I'm going to fail." "He's wrong." Victoria looked at him. "How do you know?" "Because I've seen how you work, how you think, how you push yourself." Nathan met her eyes. "You're not going to fail. And if he thinks you are, that's his mistake to make." Something shifted in Victoria's expression. The armor she wore so carefully seemed to crack just for a moment. "Thank you," she whispered. "For what?" "For seeing me. Not the CEO, not the billionaire, just me." Nathan smiled. "That's what friends do." The word felt strange in his mouth. He hadn't called anyone friend in 7 years, but Victoria smiled back and something loosened in his chest. "Friends," she repeated. "Yeah, I'd like that." The trouble started 2 weeks later. Nathan was in his clinical rotation working the overnight shift at Cook County Hospital. His first real patient interaction in 7 years. The man was 63, admitted for chest pains, possible cardiac event. Nathan monitored his vitals, adjusted his IV, kept him calm while they waited for test results. "You're good at this," the man said. "I've had practice." "No, I mean," the man studied his face. "You actually care. I can tell. Most nurses, they're just going through the motions. You're actually here." Nathan didn't know what to say. He'd spent 7 years not being seen now. Suddenly, people were starting to notice him. "I just want to make sure you're okay," he said. "I know, that's what I mean." The man smiled. "My wife would like you. She always says she can tell the good ones from the bad ones just by how they hold a hand." "How do I hold a hand?" "Like it matters. Like the person attached to it matters." The man's eyes were warm. "Don't lose that, kid. Whatever else happens, don't lose that." Later that night, Nathan stepped outside for air. The city was quiet, the streets empty, except for the occasional ambulance rushing past. His phone buzzed. "Victoria, it's 2 a.m., he said. "I know. Did I wake you?" "I'm on shift." "Why are you awake?" "Couldn't sleep." Her voice sounded strange, tired in a way that went beyond physical exhaustion. "Roland called a meeting today. Emergency board session. He's pushing for a review of foundation expenditures." Nathan felt his stomach drop. "Is that about me?" "It's about everything. But yes, you came up." Victoria paused. "He's been digging. He found out about the funeral costs, the tailored suit, the personal attention I've been paying to your case." "Victoria, I never asked for any of that. I know that's not the point." Her voice cracked. "Roland doesn't care about the truth. He cares about narrative. And the narrative he's building is that I've become personally involved with a scholarship recipient, that I've compromised my judgment, that I'm letting emotion override business sense. Is he right? The question hung in the air. I don't know, Victoria whispered. Maybe I've spent more time with you in the past month than I've spent with anyone in years. I tell you things I don't tell anyone. She stopped. Nathan, I don't know what's happening. I don't know what I feel. I just know that when I'm with you, I feel like myself for the first time in 15 years. Nathan closed his eyes. His heart was pounding. Victoria, I don't. Her voice was sharp. Don't say anything. Not yet. I just needed you to know. Whatever happens next, I needed you to know that this isn't just business for me. It stopped being business the moment you saved my life. It stopped being business for me, too. Silence stretched between them. Two people on opposite ends of the city, separated by billions of dollars and 7 years of grief, connected by something neither of them could name. I have to go, Victoria finally said. Board meeting in the morning. Roland's going to try to tear me apart. You're going to win. How do you know? Nathan thought about the man in the hospital bed. About how he'd said Nathan held hands like they mattered. Because you care, he said. And people who care don't lose. Not in the end. I hope you're right. I am. Trust me. Victoria laughed. Softly. The invisible man is telling me to trust him. When did the world get so strange? The night I saved a billionaire on a plane and she decided to save me back. Good night, Nathan. Good night, Victoria. He hung up and stood in the cold Chicago night, heart racing, wondering what tomorrow would bring. Whatever it was, he was ready. For the first time in 7 years, Nathan Cross was ready for whatever came next. Roland struck at the annual Foundation Gala. 500 guests filled the grand ballroom of the Four Seasons Chicago. Crystal chandeliers scattered light across designer gowns and tailored suits. The champagne cost more per bottle than Nathan had made in a week at the warehouse. He stood near the back, uncomfortable in the suit Victoria had given him, watching the crowd mill and mingle like exotic fish in an expensive tank. You look like you're planning an escape route. Nathan turned. Victoria stood beside him, stunning in a navy gown that made her look like she belonged on a magazine cover. 3 exits, he said. Kitchen door to the left, main entrance behind us. Service corridor through the back. Old habits. Survival instincts. When you spend 7 years being invisible, you learn to always know how to disappear. Victoria touched his arm. You don't have to disappear anymore. Before Nathan could respond, the lights dimmed. The crowd turned toward the stage where Roland was stepping up to the microphone. Before we continue with tonight's festivities, Roland said, his voice carrying through the ballroom with practiced concern. I have some matters regarding Foundation operations that must be addressed publicly. Victoria went rigid beside Nathan. What is he doing? The screen behind Roland illuminated. Photographs appeared. Nathan and Victoria coffee together at the Foundation cafeteria, walking toward his apartment building. Her car parked outside at 11:43 at night. Nathan's blood ran cold. My sister's recent behavior has raised some concerns, Roland continued. A former custodian, a man who abandoned his nursing career for 7 years, has been fast-tracked through our program while more qualified candidates wait. He's been given housing, tuition, child care benefits worth over $175,000. Meanwhile, my sister personally supervises his progress. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Phones rose like predators scenting blood. I'm not suggesting anything improper, Roland said with mock sincerity. I'm simply asking, is this appropriate use of donor funds, or has our CEO confused philanthropy with personal interest? Nathan felt 500 pairs of eyes turn toward him, wealthy, polished, judging. Everything he had feared, that he didn't belong, that he was a charity case, that he would never be anything more than an invisible man from the cheap seats, confirmed before an audience of people who had never worked 3 jobs in their lives. Nathan, Victoria's voice was urgent. Don't. But he was already moving. He walked through the crowd, each step costing him everything. He didn't run. He was too proud for that. But every pair of eyes felt like a brand burning into his skin. Nathan, wait. He didn't stop. Through the kitchen door, down the service corridor, out into the cold Chicago night. The door slammed behind him. He was invisible again, and this time he wanted it. The apartment was dark when he got home. Mrs. Delgado, the neighbor who watched Lily during evening shifts, had already put her to bed. Nathan stood in the doorway of his daughter's room, watching her sleep. Mr. Patches was tucked under her arm, his one remaining eye reflecting the street light from outside. 7 years of hiding. 7 years of learning that hope was just another word for disappointment. His mother's voice echoed in his head. Don't be afraid to live again. But living hurt. Living meant opening yourself up to the kind of pain he'd sworn he would never feel again. He sat down on the couch in the dark, Megan's ring, heavy on the chain around his neck. He'd carried her with him for 7 years. Every decision, every choice, every moment filtered through the question of what she would have wanted. What would Megan want now? His phone buzzed. Victoria. He let it go to voicemail. It buzzed again and again and again. Finally, a text. Please let me explain. He turned off the phone. Daddy. Lily stood in the hallway. Mr. Patches clutched to her chest. Hey, sweetheart, what are you doing up? I heard you come in. You were walking loud. She patted across the floor and climbed onto the couch beside him. Why are you sitting in the dark just thinking about what? Nathan looked at his daughter, 8 years old, and she'd already seen more loss than most people experienced in a lifetime. Her mother dead before she could form memories. Her grandmother buried less than 2 months ago. Her father struggling to hold it together while the world kept finding new ways to tear him apart. About whether I made a mistake, he said. What kind of mistake? Coming here, trusting someone, believing that things could be different. Lily was quiet for a moment. Then she said, Hernandez told us a story today about a turtle. A turtle, yeah, the turtle was scared of getting hurt. So, he stayed inside his shell all the time. He never came out, never made friends, never saw the sun. And one day, he realized he'd spent his whole life being safe, but he'd never actually lived. Nathan felt his throat tighten. What happened to the turtle? He came out of his shell, and yeah, sometimes he got hurt, but he also found friends and saw beautiful things and had adventures. Lily looked up at him with those two wise eyes. Ms. Hernandez says the moral is that being safe isn't the same as being happy. And if you're too scared to get hurt, you're too scared to live. Nathan pulled his daughter close. When had she become so smart? When had she started understanding things that he was still struggling to grasp? Daddy. Yeah, sweetheart. I don't know what happened tonight, but I know Victoria is your friend, and friends make mistakes sometimes, but that doesn't mean they're bad people. Lily paused. Maybe you should talk to her before you decide she's not worth it. Nathan stared at his daughter. When did you get so wise? I've always been wise. You just don't listen good. Despite everything, Nathan laughed. Don't listen well. That's what I said. Lily yawned. Can I sleep with you tonight? I don't want to be alone. Nathan kissed the top of her head. Yeah, sweetheart. You can sleep with me. They walked to his bedroom together. Lily carrying Mr. Patches. Nathan carrying the weight of decisions he hadn't yet made. But something had shifted. Something had cracked through the armor he'd been building for 7 years. Maybe it was time to come out of his shell. The knock came at 6 a.m. Nathan was already awake. He hadn't really slept making coffee in the kitchen while Lily dozed in his bed. He opened the door expecting Mrs. Delgado. Victoria stood in the hallway. She looked destroyed, makeup smeared, hair disheveled, the same gown from last night now wrinkled and stained with what looked like tears. She'd clearly been up all night. I didn't know, she said. I swear to God, Nathan, I didn't know he was going to do that. Come inside, you'll wake the neighbors. She stepped into the apartment. Her eyes swept over the small space, the second-hand furniture, the children's drawings on the refrigerator, the stack of medical textbooks on the kitchen table. I've never been here, she realized. No, you haven't. I should have come. I should have seen how you live instead of just. She trailed off. Instead of just seeing you when it was convenient for me. Nathan handed her a cup of coffee. She wrapped her hands around it like it was a lifeline. Roland has been building this for weeks. She said private investigators' surveillance. He knew everything the funeral cost, the suit, the nights I stayed late at the foundation when you were studying. He's been waiting for the right moment to use it. Why? Because he wants my chair. He's always wanted it, and he knows that the best way to take me down isn't through the company. It's through my judgment. If he can make the board believe I've lost objectivity, they'll push me out. Nathan sat down across from her. Have you lost objectivity? Victoria looked at him for a long moment. Yes, she said, I have, but not in the way Roland thinks. What do you mean? I mean that I started this program to help nurses get back into the field. I started helping you because you saved my life and I felt guilty. I kept helping you because your story moved me. She paused, but somewhere along the way, it stopped being about guilt. It stopped being about the program. It started being about you. Nathan felt his heart pound. Victoria, I'm not saying this right. She sat down the coffee cup. I don't know how to say it. I've spent 42 years building walls. I don't know how to talk about feelings. I don't know how to be vulnerable. All I know is that when I'm with you, I feel like a human being instead of a balance sheet. That's how I feel, too. The words were out before he could stop them. Victoria's breath caught. You do. I've been hiding for 7 years, telling myself that I didn't need anyone, that Lily was enough, that I could just survive and that would be okay. Nathan met her eyes. But my mother was right. Surviving isn't the same as living. And when I'm with you, I feel like maybe I could learn how to live again. Even after what happened last night. Last night wasn't your fault. It was Roland's, but the consequences are temporary. Nathan leaned forward. Roland wants to destroy you by making this about us, so we don't let him. We prove that the program works. We prove that your judgment is sound. We show the board that what you're building actually matters. How? By me finishing the program. By proving that every scholarship, every dollar, every hour of support produces results that speak for themselves. Nathan took her hand. You believed in me when I was invisible. Let me prove that belief was justified. Victoria's eyes filled with tears. Nathan, Daddy. Lily appeared in the bedroom doorway, rubbing her eyes. Why is Ms. Victoria here? It's super early. Victoria quickly wiped her face. I'm sorry, sweetie. I didn't mean to wake you. Lily studied her with that unnerving intensity. You've been crying. Your eyes are all red. I had a rough night. Did something bad happen? Victoria glanced at Nathan. He nodded slightly. A mean man said some things about me and your daddy. Victoria said carefully. He was trying to hurt us. Lily's face hardened. That's not nice. Who was it? I'll tell Ms. Hernandez. She says bullies need to be called out. Despite everything, Victoria laughed. I appreciate the backup, sweetheart, but this is a grown-up bully. I have to handle it myself. Are you going to fight him? In a way, but not with fists. With truth. Lily nodded solemnly. Good. Truth is the best weapon. That's what Grandma Dorothy said. She looked between Victoria and her father. Are you guys still friends? Yeah, sweetheart. Nathan said we're still friends. Good, because I like Miss Victoria and I think she makes you happy. Lily yawned. Can we have pancakes? I'm hungry. Nathan looked at Victoria. Want to stay for breakfast? I shouldn't. I have a board meeting in 3 hours. Roland's going to try to tear me apart. Then you need to eat first. You can't fight a war on an empty stomach. Victoria hesitated. Then she smiled a real smile, the first one Nathan had seen since the gala. Okay, but only if I can help make them. Lily's face lit up. Victoria can flip. Daddy always burns them. I do not always burn them. You burned them last week and the week before. And okay. Nathan stood. Ms. Victoria is officially in charge of flipping. They made pancakes together. Nathan mixing the batter. Victoria manning the griddle. Lily setting the table with mismatched plates from the cabinet. It was chaotic and messy and completely ordinary. It was the happiest Nathan had felt in 7 years. The board meeting was a bloodbath. Victoria walked into the conference room knowing that Roland had spent all night preparing his attack. She'd seen his face at the gala. The barely concealed triumph, the certainty that he'd finally found her weakness. He was right about one thing. Nathan was her weakness, but weaknesses could also be strengths. It just depended on how you use them. Before we begin, Roland said, positioning himself at the head of the table. I move that we conduct a full review of Foundation expenditures with particular attention to the nursing re-entry program and its special recipients. Seconded, said Harrison Wells, a board member who had been in Roland's pocket for years. I object, said Dr. Margaret Chen. This is clearly a personal vendetta dressed up as fiduciary responsibility. It's not personal. Roland's smile didn't reach his eyes. It's about protecting donor confidence when the CEO of a major corporation is seen spending Foundation resources on a romantic interest. Nathan Cross is not my romantic interest. Victoria cut in. He's a participant in a program I founded, and I have documentation to prove that every dollar spent on his case was approved through standard Foundation processes. She opened her laptop and projected files onto the conference room screen. Nathan Cross entered the program through normal application channels. His entrance exam scores were in the 97th percentile. His clinical evaluations have been uniformly excellent. He has saved 4 patient lives during his rotations, documented, verified on the record. She clicked to the next slide. The housing assistance he received is identical to what every program participant receives. The child care support is standard. The only expenditure outside normal parameters was the funeral costs for his mother, which I paid personally out of my own pocket, not Foundation funds. The board members shifted uncomfortably. Roland's smile faltered. As for the photographs Roland showed last night, Victoria continued, yes, I have spent time with Nathan outside of program requirements. Yes, I have visited his apartment. Yes, I care about him personally. She looked directly at her brother. But caring about a scholarship recipient isn't a crime. It's not even improper. It's what every philanthropist should do, actually know the people they're trying to help. The optics, Roland began. The optics are whatever you make them. Victoria's voice hardened. You hired a private investigator to follow me. You took photographs out of context. You staged a public humiliation designed to destroy my credibility and advance your own position. She pulled out a thick folder and slid it across the table. What's this? Roland asked, his voice tight. 3 years of forensic accounting. Shell corporations in the Cayman Islands. Wire transfers to accounts registered in your name alone. $4.7 million embezzled from both the corporation and the foundation since 2021. The color drained from Roland's face. The SEC has been investigating for 18 months. Victoria continued. I've been cooperating quietly, building the case, waiting to see how far you'd go. She stood. You wanted to destroy me by weaponizing my compassion. You turned a good man's poverty into a scandal. You used his pain to advance your ambition. Her voice shook with controlled fury. And you did it while stealing millions from the company our mother built. Victoria, I can explain. Save it for the FBI. The conference room doors opened. 2 agents in dark suits stepped inside. Roland Ashford, one of them said, you're under arrest for securities fraud and embezzlement. You have the right to remain silent. They led him away in handcuffs. The room was silent for a long moment. Well, Doctor, Chen said finally, I move that we table all discussion of the CEO's personal relationships and refocus on the actual business of this foundation. The vote was unanimous. Victoria found Nathan in the foundation lobby 2 hours later. He was sitting on a bench near the entrance, still wearing the clothes from breakfast. He looked up when she approached. Well, Roland's been arrested. The board voted unanimously to support me. Victoria sat down beside him. It's over. Nathan let out a breath he'd been holding for hours. I was worried. So was I. She took his hand. But you were right. Truth is the best weapon. Lily said that. She's quoting her grandmother now. Smart kid. She gets it from her mother. They sat in silence for a moment. The lobby was empty except for a security guard at the front desk. What happens now? Nathan asked. Now you've finished the program. You get your certification. You become a nurse again. Victoria squeezed his hand. And then we figure out what comes next. What do you want to come next? Victoria turned to look at him. This man who had saved her life on a plane. This man who had taught her what invisible meant. This man who had shown her that worth wasn't measured in dollars. I want to learn how to be happy, she said. I want to stop building walls. I want to let someone in. She paused. I want to see if this whatever this is between us can become something real. Nathan felt his heart pound. I want that, too. Even though it's complicated, everything worth having is complicated. Even though I'm a mess. We're both messes. Nathan smiled. Maybe we can be messes together. Victoria laughed. It was the sound of armor cracking, of walls coming down, of a woman finally allowing herself to feel. Together, she repeated. I'd like that. She leaned her head against his shoulder. They sat there in the empty lobby, 2 broken people holding each other up. Finally ready to stop hiding. Finally ready to live. That night, Nathan sat alone in his apartment, Karen's ring in his palm. 7 years he had worn it against his chest, 7 years of carrying her with him everywhere. A weight that was both comfort and chain. He held it up to the light. The gold was worn thin from years of handling. The inscription inside was barely visible. Forever yours, Kay. Karen, he whispered. I think I'm ready. The apartment was silent. No answer. No sign. I'm not replacing you. I'll always love you. You gave me Lily. You gave me everything good in my life for so long. His voice cracked. But Mum was right. I've been hiding. And there's someone who sees me. Really sees me. Not the janitor. Not the failed husband who couldn't save you. Just me. He placed the ring in a small wooden box on his dresser. You told me not to let you be the end of my story. I didn't understand then. He closed the box gently. I understand now. Lily appeared in the doorway. What's that, Daddy? Nathan turned. Mommy's ring. I've been wearing it for a long time, but I think it's time to put it somewhere safe. Are you sad? A little, but mostly. He searched for the right word. Mostly, I feel free. Lily crossed the room and climbed into his lap. Ms. Hernandez says, sometimes we have to let go of old things to make room for new things. Like when I had to give away my baby toys so I could have room for big kid toys. Ms. Hernandez is very wise. I know, that's why I listen to her. Lily paused. Daddy, is Victoria going to be your girlfriend now? Nathan felt heat rise to his face. Maybe. Would that be okay with you? Lily thought about it. She makes good pancakes and she makes you smile and she doesn't treat me like I'm a baby. She nodded. Yeah, I think it would be okay. You're sure, Daddy? Lily's voice was serious. Mommy's in heaven. Grandma Dorothy, too. They want you to be happy. They told me. They told you. In my dreams, Mommy said, take care of Daddy Rosie. Make sure he doesn't forget how to laugh. And Grandma Dorothy said, don't let him hide anymore. Nathan's throat tightened. You dreamed that every night since Grandma died, she comes and tells me stories about when you were little and Mommy comes and sings me songs. Lily smiled. They're not really gone, Daddy. They're just somewhere we can't see. Nathan pulled his daughter close. His daughter, who had lost so much, who had every reason to be broken, who instead had become the strongest person he knew. I love you, Rosie girl. I love you too, Daddy. She yawned. Can we call Miss Victoria tomorrow? I want to ask her something. Ask her what if she knows how to braid hair. Mrs. Delgado tries, but she always makes it lumpy. Nathan laughed. It was a real laugh. The kind that came from somewhere deep and genuine. Yeah, sweetheart. We can call her tomorrow. Good. Lily snuggled against his chest. I think we're going to be okay, Daddy. I don't know why, I just do. Nathan held his daughter in the quiet apartment, the wooden box on his dresser catching the street light from outside. Karen's ring finally at rest, his heart finally open, his future finally beginning. 15 months after flight, 1847, Nathan Cross stood in new scrubs. The ID badge clipped to his chest read Nathan Cross RN Emergency Department. The fabric was worn, now comfortable, lived in. Nothing like the stiff new scrubs from his first day back. These scrubs had seen patients, had been splashed with blood and sweat and tears, had been through the crucible of emergency medicine and come out the other side. He had come out the other side, too. You ready for this? Victoria appeared beside him, coffee in hand. She wore jeans and a simple blouse. No Valentino gowns, no Hermes scarves, just herself. First official day as a certified nurse in 7 years, Nathan said, I'm terrified. Good. That means you care. He smiled. That's what drive. Chen said on my first day of the program. She's a smart woman. Victoria handed him the coffee. I have something for you. She pulled a small box from her purse. Inside was a stethoscope, not the cheap training model he'd been using, but a real one, professional grade. Engraved on the bell were 3 words. See the invisible. Nathan's throat tightened. I thought about what to get you, Victoria said. Something to celebrate this moment, and I kept coming back to what you taught me. What I taught you, that worth isn't measured in net worth. That the people we walk past every day, the janitors, the warehouse workers, the single parents working 3 jobs, they're not invisible. They're just unseen. She touched his face. You taught me to see them. I wanted you to have something to remind you of that. Nathan pulled her into his arms. They stood there in the hospital corridor holding each other, 2 people who had found each other at 30,000 feet and somehow impossibly had managed to hold on. I love you, he said. The words came easily now. They'd said them dozens of times over the past months, whispered in the dark, spoken over breakfast, texted in the middle of the night when one of them couldn't sleep. I love you, too. Victoria pulled back, her eyes bright. Now go save some lives. I'll pick up Lily from school. You don't have to. I want to. We're going to practice braiding. She smiled. She's been very patient with my learning curve. Nathan laughed. Lily had indeed been patient, mostly because Victoria bribed her with ice cream after every successful attempt. I'll see you tonight, he said. Tonight. Victoria kissed him. Go be a hero. Nathan walked into the emergency department. The chaos hit him immediately. The beeping monitors, the rushing staff, the controlled pandemonium of a busy urban hospital. 7 years ago, this sound would have triggered panic attacks. Now it felt like coming home. Cross. The charge nurse waved him over. We've got a multi-vehicle accident coming in. ETA 3 minutes. You're on trauma team 2. Got it. Nathan grabbed his equipment and headed for the ambulance bay. His heart was pounding, but his hands were steady. His training was solid. His skills were sharp. The ambulance doors burst open. A woman was wheeled in unconscious, her face covered in blood. The paramedics were shouting vitals, listing injuries, relaying everything they knew. Nathan moved. His hands remembered everything, the airway check, the pulse assessment, the rapid triage of injuries. He called out orders, coordinated with the team, worked with the precision that 8 years in the ICU and 15 months of retraining had burned into his muscle memory. Somewhere in the back of his mind, a voice whispered, "This is who you are. This is who you've always been." 3 hours later, the woman was stabilized. Nathan stood in the hallway, exhausted, exhilarated, covered in the evidence of a battle won. A surgeon approached him. "Drive. Williams, a veteran of the trauma unit. That was good work in there, Cross." "Thank you, sir. Where did you train?" "Northwestern ICU, left in 2016. "Drive." Williams raised an eyebrow. 7 years out and you handle a trauma like that? Most nurses who've been away that long can't find a vein on the first try. "I had good teachers," Nathan paused. "And good reasons to come back. Whatever the reasons, keep them. We need more nurses like you. Drive." Williams clapped him on the shoulder and walked away. Nathan leaned against the wall, letting the weight of the day settle over him. He had done it. After 7 years of hiding, 7 years of believing he was broken, 7 years of cleaning toilets and loading boxes and scraping by on the margins of existence, he had done it. He was a nurse again. His phone buzzed. "Victoria. How did it go?" "I saved a life today." "Of course you did." He could hear the smile in her voice. That's what you do. I almost forgot. For 7 years, I almost forgot that this is who I am. You didn't forget, you just got lost for a while. Victoria's voice softened, but you found your way back. And I'm so proud of you. Nathan felt tears prick his eyes. Thank you for everything, for believing in me when I didn't believe in myself. You saved my life first. Remember, I was just returning the favor. It was more than that. I know, she paused. Come home soon. Lily and I are making dinner. Well, Lily is making dinner. I'm supervising, which means I'm trying not to burn anything. Nathan laughed. I'll be there in an hour. Good. We're having pancakes. For dinner. Lily's choice. She says pancakes are appropriate for all occasions, especially celebrations. She's not wrong. She's almost never wrong. It's slightly intimidating. Victoria's voice turned warm. I love you, Nathan. Come home. I love you, too. I'm on my way. He hung up and stood there for a moment, letting the words wash over him. Come home. For 7 years, home had been a place to survive, a cramped apartment, a mattress on the floor, walls that closed in a little more each day. Now home was something different. Home was Lily's laughter and Victoria's smile, and the three of them together building something new from broken pieces. Nathan walked out of the hospital into the Chicago twilight. For the first time in 7 years, he couldn't wait to get there. The apartment had changed. Victoria's presence was everywhere now. Not in expensive furniture or designer touches, but in small things. A proper coffee maker, books on the shelf that weren't medical textbooks, a framed photograph on the wall of the three of them at the zoo taken 6 months ago on Lily's birthday. Nathan stood in the doorway taking it in. Daddy. Lily launched herself at him. He caught her, swung her around, held her close. How was your first day? Did you save anyone? Did you use the stethoscope? Ms. Victoria said you'd probably save at least one person because you're amazing. I saved one person, Nathan said, a woman from a car accident. See, I told you. Lily beamed. You're a superhero. I'm not a superhero, Rosie girl. Just someone who knows how to help. That's what superheroes say in all the movies. They say, I'm not special. And then they save everyone. Lily grabbed his hand. Come on, the pancakes are almost ready. Victoria only burned 2 of them. 2. That's an improvement. I know, I told her she's getting better. They walked into the kitchen together. Victoria stood at the stove wearing an apron that said, World's okay, chef. A gift from Lily. The hero returns, she said. The chef burns pancakes, Nathan replied. Only 2 this time. Victoria flipped a pancake with exaggerated care. I'm practically a professional. Nathan wrapped his arms around her from behind. Thank you for being here. There's nowhere else I'd rather be. She leaned back against him. This is what I spent 42 years looking for without knowing it. What's that? A reason to come home. Lily appeared between them, squeezing into the hug. Group hug. We haven't done a group hug in like 2 days. 2 whole days. Nathan squeezed tighter. That's practically a lifetime. Why? They stood there in the kitchen. The 3 of them wrapped around each other while pancakes sizzled on the griddle. It wasn't perfect. The apartment was small. Victoria still worked too many hours. Nathan was still adjusting to the demands of emergency nursing. Lily still had nightmares. Sometimes still asked questions about her mother and grandmother that no one could fully answer. But it was real. It was honest. It was theirs. And that was enough. 6 months later, Victoria sold her penthouse. Are you sure about this? Nathan asked, watching the movers carry boxes out of the building where she'd lived for 15 years. Completely sure. It's a $70 million apartment, and you're moving into a 3-bedroom house in Lincoln Park. The apartment was a monument to loneliness. The house is going to be a home. Victoria took his hand. Besides, Lily needs a backyard. She's been very clear about that. She wants a dog. I know. We're getting one. Nathan stared at her. Victoria smiled. I've been thinking about us, about what comes next. And I don't want to keep playing it safe. I don't want to keep hedging my bets, maintaining separate spaces, pretending this is something casual. She squeezed his hand. I want to build a life together, a real life, not a tentative one. Nathan felt his heart pound. Victoria, are you asking you to marry me? She laughed. Not yet, though. If you want to ask me, I wouldn't say no. Noted. I'm asking you to move in with me officially. No more back and forth. No more your place or mine. Just ours. She met his eyes. I'm asking you to be a family for real. Nathan thought about everything they'd been through. The plane, the parking lot, the gala, Roland's betrayal, the long nights and early mornings and slow, painful process of learning to trust again. Yes, he said. Victoria's face lit up. Yes, yes. He pulled her close. Let's be a family. For real. They bought the house in Lincoln Park. 3 bedrooms, a backyard, a kitchen big enough for pancake disasters. They adopted a golden retriever named Biscuit, who immediately became Lily's best friend. Nathan hung his mother's photograph in the living room next to Karen's. Two women who had shaped his life watching over the new one he was building. They would have liked this, Victoria said the first night in the new house. I think so too. Your mother especially. She wanted you to stop hiding, to find someone, to live again. Nathan nodded. She made me promise, her last words. Have you kept the promise? He looked around the room at Lily playing with Biscuit on the floor, at Victoria curled up beside him on the couch, at the life he'd built from the ashes of the one he'd lost. Yeah, he said. I think I finally have. The wedding was small, just family and close friends gathered in the backyard of the Lincoln Park house. Dr. Margaret Chen officiated. She'd gotten ordained online specifically for the occasion. Lily was the flower girl. She took the job very seriously, scattering petals with mathematical precision. Nathan stood at the altar in a simple suit, watching Victoria walk toward him in a dress that was elegant but understated. No Valentino, no designer labels, just a woman in love walking toward the rest of her life. 15 months ago, Dr. Chen began. These two people met on a plane. One of them was dying, the other was invisible. Neither of them knew that what happened next would change everything. Nathan and Victoria held hands. His were calloused. Hers were soft. Together, they fit perfectly. Nathan, your vows. Nathan took a breath. Victoria, I spent 7 years believing I was invisible. I convinced myself that hiding was the same as living, that survival was the same as happiness, that I didn't deserve anything more than the shadow existence I'd created. His voice cracked. Then I saved you on that plane. And you did something no one else had done in 7 years. You saw me. Not the janitor, not the failed husband, not the man who couldn't save his wife, just me. Victoria's eyes filled with tears. You taught me that worth isn't measured in dollars, that success isn't about quarterly earnings, that the invisible people matter most of all. Nathan squeezed her hands. I promised to spend the rest of my life seeing you. Really seeing you. Not the CEO, not the billionaire, just Victoria, the woman who taught me how to live again. Drive. Chen nodded. Victoria, your vows. Victoria wiped her eyes. Nathan, I spent 42 years building walls. I told myself that success would make me happy, that money would make me safe, that if I worked hard enough, I would finally be worthy of love. Her voice trembled. Then I almost died and a man in duct-taped shoes saved my life. He didn't want a reward. He didn't want recognition. He just disappeared like a ghost, like someone who had spent so long being overlooked that he didn't know how to accept gratitude. Nathan smiled through his own tears. You taught me what matters. Not net worth, not board meetings, not quarterly reports. What matters is who you become when no one's watching. What matters is helping people who have nothing to offer in return. What matters is love. She lifted his hands to her lips. I promise to spend the rest of my life learning from you, learning to see people, learning to be present, learning to love without reservation. She paused, and I promised to get better at pancakes. Laughter rippled through the small crowd. By the power vested in me by the state of Illinois and a website I found on the internet. Drive. Chen said, I now pronounce you husband. And wife, you may kiss the bride. Nathan pulled Victoria into his arms. Their lips met. The crowd cheered. Biscuit barked. Lily threw flower petals in the air and shouted, finally, now we can have cake. They pulled apart laughing. Hello, wife, Nathan said. Hello, husband. Victoria touched his face. Is this really happening? It's really happening. I can't believe it. Neither can I. Nathan looked at her. This woman who had crashed into his life at 30,000 feet and somehow impossibly had made him whole again. But I'm grateful every day that it did. That night, after the guests had left, and Lily had fallen asleep and Biscuit was snoring on his bed in the corner, Nathan and Victoria sat on the back porch of their home. The Chicago skyline glittered in the distance. The stars were visible for once, scattered across the sky like promises. What are you thinking? Victoria asked. Nathan was quiet for a moment. I'm thinking about my mother, about how she made me promise not to be afraid to live again. He paused. I'm thinking about Karen. How she told me to take care of Lily. How she said, don't let me be the end of your story. Have you kept your promises? I think so. Nathan took Victoria's hand. I was invisible for 7 years. I convinced myself it was what I deserved, that I'd failed too badly to ever come back. What changed? You did. You saw me, really saw me, and you didn't look away. Victoria leaned against his shoulder. I was dying for 42 years and didn't know it, she said. Building my empire, climbing my ladder, never stopping long enough to realize I was alone. What changed? You did. You taught me that success means nothing if there's no one to share it with. That worth isn't measured in dollars. That the invisible people are often the most visible of all if you bother to look. They sat in comfortable silence. I'm going to expand the foundation, Victoria said after a while. More scholarships, more programs, more ways to help people who've been overlooked by the system. I'll help. I was hoping you'd say that. She turned to look at him. We could do so much, Nathan, together. Make the system better. Help people like you were helped. Make sure no one has to be invisible anymore. Is that why you married me, for my nursing skills? Victoria laughed. Partly also because you make excellent coffee and because you're the only person who's ever seen me for who I really am. Her voice softened. And loved me anyway. Nathan pulled her close. I'm going to spend the rest of my life loving you, he said, making up for all the years we lost. Building something that matters. Promise. Promise. Victoria kissed him, soft and sweet and full of hope. Then let's get started, she whispered. We have a lot of time to make up for. 1 year later, Nathan and Victoria stood on another airplane. First class this time, a medical conference in Boston. Victoria had insisted. Nathan had stopped protesting. Lily sat between them reading a book about dogs. Biscuit was home with a dog sitter who charged more per hour than Nathan had made at the warehouse. Mid-flight, an elderly man in row 3 clutched his chest. Nathan was out of his seat before the call for medical assistance finished. Victoria was right behind him, already pulling supplies from the overhead medical kit. They worked together, seamless, synchronized, a team forged by crisis and trust, and something neither of them had expected to find. Pulse check, aspirin administration, vitals monitoring, calm voices cutting through panic, passenger stabilized, paramedics waiting at Logan. A young flight attendant who had watched the whole thing approached them afterward, her eyes wide. How do you two do that? You work like you've been partners forever. Nathan smiled. Someone believed I was worth saving. She taught me to believe it, too. Victoria took his hand. And he taught me what worth really means. That it has nothing to do with money and everything to do with who you become when no one's watching. The flight attendant looked between them. That's beautiful. It's true, Lily said, looking up from her book. They save people. That's what they do. They saved each other first, and now they save everybody. Nathan looked at his daughter, 10 years old now, growing up so fast. She had her mother's eyes and her grandmother's wisdom and a heart big enough to love everyone she met. She's right, Victoria said. We saved each other. And now we save everybody else. Nathan pulled his wife and daughter close. The three of them stood there in the airplane aisle. A family forged from tragedy and rebuilt with love. His mother's last words echoed in his memory. Don't be afraid to live again. He had been afraid for so long. 7 years of hiding. 7 years of believing he was invisible. 7 years of thinking that survival was the best he could hope for. But survival wasn't living. And invisible wasn't gone. Nathan Cross had learned that the hard way. He had learned it on a plane at 30,000 feet, saving a stranger who would become the love of his life. He had learned it in a cemetery parking lot, accepting help when pride screamed to refuse. He had learned it in late-night study sessions and early morning clinical rotations, and every single day since he decided to stop hiding and start living. The invisible man had finally let himself be seen. And what he found on the other side, love, family, purpose, meaning, was worth every moment of fear it took to get there. Some people spend their whole lives searching for happiness. Nathan had stopped searching and found it anyway in the most unexpected place imaginable. In the eyes of a dying billionaire, in the arms of a woman who taught him to see, in the laughter of a daughter who reminded him why living mattered. He was no longer invisible. He was finally completely gloriously alive. And he would spend the rest of his life making sure no one else ever had to feel invisible again.